obviously this is a huge topic. So I'm just going to touch on some of the overall aspects of, we'll start with what not to say and then move into what to say. I never want to only give you the problems, I always want to give you some solutions as well. So I'm going to make sure that we are broadcasting and then we will get right to it. There we are. So this masterclass really applies to anyone who wants to hold a healthy space for a griever. So this could be someone that is doing professional coaching, that is a therapist, that is someone who is a caretaker. Maybe you have a friend who's lost someone, or you just want to support someone in grief, or you want to learn more about this incredibly beautiful, important, and very timely field that is in such desperate need of help and of people who will show up with the right intention and the right space and the right skills to help the tens of millions of people who are suffering from grief in our Western modern society. So one of the first things I'm going to start with, I'm going to check a few of my notes, is that unfortunately, many people who have the best of intentions to help someone in grief inadvertently end up saying things that cause more distress and more discomfort and more pain to someone in grief. And there's a few reasons for that. Um, it could just be not knowing and not being trained in the skill set, and but it's also there is so many of us in Western modern society have not dealt in any way, shape, or form with our own grief in the past, or with our own past trauma, or with the idea of dying and death itself. You know, we live in a culture that, you know, even our medical system, thank goodness for it, is, you know, their highest commitment is often life at all costs. Like there's really not a lot of communication about dying and death, and certainly not grief in modern Western society. So through my master classes like this, through the workshops I do, and through then my certification courses and my ongoing modules where I train people to be holistic grief coaches in some basic modalities. I have a course that is a 4-month course that is the fundamentals of holistic grief coaching. And that's a certification course where I take you through, you know, all the nuts and bolts of what you would need to know to work with people in a professional capacity as a holistic grief coach. And then I have different modules where I have add on courses, that things that might appeal to you, like the art therapy work that I do, or the Gaia nature therapy, or the trauma specific work. I have about a dozen add on modules over and above that are all optional, where you can, you know, become a certified grief coach with a focus on holistic grief coaching. And that teaches you all the basics so that you can help people in integrity with the right intentions and the right boundaries and the right skills. And then you can continue that education with me by adding on other modules that might appeal to you or that excite you. And those are everything from, like I said, nature and art therapy to very, very soul based sort of evolution of the soul, alchemical courses and modules where we're really working with how the soul evolves along with and through grief. That's really kind of an upper level course, but I'm so passionate about helping our culture grieve better and about helping other people like you support grievers in a healthy, loving, compassionate way so that they can navigate their grief. Because up until now, we haven't been doing it so hot in Western society. So a lot of people, they really kind of want to make it better for the griever. And just that intention right there is like the wrong starting point. I actually said wrong. If you watch me and follow me, I don't say wrong very often, but this fix it mentality, which is so Western, that grief is a problem or the person's pain is a problem, i.e., it needs to be fixed. So, what can I say to make it better? Not not how it works. And that ends up actually having the griever feel judged, that their feelings and their experience and their pain is diminished, that it should be on some timeline, that they should be in some particular step or stage, which also, if you follow me, I don't work in as a holistic grief coach and grief educator and grief coach mentor. I work with a very holistic approach. So that is not a linear approach. I do not work in stages. I honor and understand and respect that linear time is an aspect of our lives. So I teach eras of grief where we have acute grief is that immediate experience, the hours, days, weeks, months, even up to a year or two, depending on the type of loss. That's acute grief, like it's raw, red hot, right after the loss, which then moves into early grief. And early grief can be up to a couple of years. Again, very dependent on the type of loss and the type of person. Whoever that person was before the loss is the foundation, the soil, as I call it, that their grief experience then grows from. So I do a lot of talking about the biossoil, where I've created these modules of all these different aspects that a griever brings to the table, and then the grief experience is grown out of that person. So we move most people, early grief, like I said, can be like up to a couple of years. And then we have ongoing grief, which is really taking more of a deep dive into, you know, past losses, traumas. It's a very introspective time, and it can really be a time of personal development for the griever, because the grief has blown open the doors on a lot of aspects of the person's life. And that amount of pain has created this space for dealing with other things that may not have even had anything to do with the loss. um, because there's kind of that choice, that am I going to stay in this raw pain forever, or am I going to find ways to integrate grief into a life that is being lived? So, I use that metaphor of sort of the computer thing, where acute grief is just they're offline. They're offline. There's no program running. They're offline. And then early grieving is there's this sporadic trying to load a program in the computer of the mind, but usually it's an old program and it doesn't really work that well because they've been changed by their loss. And then ongoing grief is really you're deciding that you're going to work with, well, what program will run with this loss and this life? How am I integrating and sort of creating, like, what am I going to do with all this? What am I going to do with all this? So it's very introspective, and it's a deep dive time. It's a deep dive time. So you may find that, if you're doing this work professionally, that people think it's only about the acute and the early grief, but it's not. It's, you could be working with people that are years post loss, but they're really stuck on something where they can't get past a certain narrative or a certain story, or self-punishment or guilt or blame or all kinds of things. So that ongoing grieving era is very powerful. They're taking that kaleidoscope of brokenness and saying, what am I going to do with this? And then there's mature grief where we, we work with helping people, find ways to honor their loved ones and to integrate grief even further and to really be running more of like a 2.0 version of themselves on their mental programming. And then ultimately there's lifelong grieving, and that is how you live your life, the rest of your life. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do with this? How are you going to have your loved one as a part of your life, like really in your soul tissue, as I like to call it? So, these things that I want to share with you about what not to say and what to say, uh, I think they hold true throughout any aspect or any era of grieving, and they are particularly potent and potentially destructive or very empowering if you're doing the things to say in that acute and early grief um, era, especially with acute, because the person is so raw. A lot of their filters, a lot of their boundaries, they really don't have a lot of self protection. The what's the Star Trek? Their deflector shields aren't, they're broken. They're just gone. So when you can show up as a safe person and work with this type of language and stay away from the what not to say language, you really can have an impact on a griever. In like, this really is an important part of holding a healthy space for a griever, is dialogue. And again, this is just a tiny bit of what I teach in my courses. Like, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn. I say it's kind of like grief coaching meets life coaching, because you're really taking a whole life and helping someone put an entire life back together. It's not just kind of a bing bang boom, yay, they're, now they're better from their grief. That's just not possible. So let's dive in. So that number one thing is that you do not have the ability to make it all better or to take away their pain. So it's more important to convey authenticity and compassion and kindness and sincerity. And I'll tell you right now, it isn't about a lot of words. And I think that's where people go wrong right out of the gate, is that they're uncomfortable with what's happening, with a level of pain or an experience that is so painful for another person that maybe the person, whether it's a grief coach, a grief counselor, a therapist, or you as a lay person who just want to support another person, or a caretaker, that if you have not experienced major loss of a loved one, it can be quite daunting to see how utterly ravaging raw grief looks like, feels like, sounds like. And of course it can be all over the map. They could be feeling nothing. I talk about that in other courses and other master classes, that grief doesn't look any particular way. But the first thing, especially in Western culture, is to avoid toxic positivity. I talk about this a lot because it's rampant in our culture. So if you hear your brain coming up with terms like, well, at least, or you're lucky that, or well, you should be grateful for, or life goes on, these are incredibly diminishing. We're in the what not to say part of the masterclass here. These are very diminishing statements. You're not going to magically cheer this person up or make them feel better or find some, abracadabra magical words that are going to take their pain away. It is heinous to even think that you could do that or to try. It's really a breach of sort of a humane soul contract to try to take away someone's pain, even from the best of intentions. One, it doesn't work, and two, it definitely causes more damage than help. So you're not going to turn their attention to something positive and have them just not feel their pain or magically feel better. That's going to be more about making you feel better, because that's taking a deep look at how uncomfortable you may be with what they're feeling, or you're not understanding it and you're just trying to kind of whitewash it, or flip it so that it feels better. Being able to hold space for another person who is in raw, deep pain is a muscle that can be developed. So if you're new to this, the tip is that I'm going to give you is when in doubt, you get to say nothing. You can just hold space. You can hold their hand if you know them and you have permission, or you can just sit with them. I've sat with people and just lined my shoulder and my arm up with them and just sat there. And then, one person then just leaned their head on my shoulder and we just stayed like that for, I don't know, 20 minutes. It was a long time. Silence is challenging. It's challenging. Part of my fundamentals of grief coaching, I do teach some skills of active listening and therapeutic dialogue and therapeutic listening and how to hold that space with specific skills. And we practice it so that you really develop that muscle before you head out and work with other people. So, wanting to relieve their discomfort is often about wanting to relieve your own discomfort. And everybody has that. I can't say that I'm over that. It's a skill that I've learned. I mean, it's hard to be with someone who's in raw pain and not feel, wow, that's just so much. But when we try to flip a sad situation into a positive one, it trivializes their feelings. And it may really give the message that their feelings aren't valid or that they're not okay. And that's the last thing we want to do because validating whatever they're experiencing is such an important part of holding a healthy space for a griever. So the second thing of what not to say is talking about your own experience of loss. If you've seen some of my other master classes, I just have a major issue. It's just me with a lot of the grief Facebook groups that are the open groups that are public, which is why my groups are private because I monitor this and you're just not allowed to do this in my group because someone will post something like, oh, I just lost my dad and blah, blah. It was so traumatic. It was a surprise. And then maybe you'll get one person saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for you. That's probably me. That's so terrible. I don't, recommend my groups or anything because that's against the rules of most of those Facebook groups. But I usually just keep it very simple, a heart. I even, I don't know this person, so I don't even know how what I say is going to land. So I really keep it very simple. It's just I'm giving it some attention and I'm putting a heart or something in there and everyone else, there's like 3,000 people posting and all of them are posting their own story. Oh, I know how you feel. I lost my dad a year ago and it was terrible and blah, blah, blah. So the golden rule with grief is no one knows how another person feels in grief. You could have had exactly the same story. You could be siblings who lost the same parent and you have a completely different experience of loss and grief. So not only does this it's just almost a straitjacket for the other person's experience, for the griever's experience. Because guess what? It's no longer about them. Now it's about you, and you're telling your story. I know that this comes often from a place of wanting to say, hey, I know how you feel and I empathize, but you do not know how they feel. And empathy without boundaries can be stealing their experience and making it just comes across as being then you've taken their experience and now you've made it about you. So it can be feel very dismissive of their pain, and loss is just so personal that there is no I know how you feel. It, even if you do and you really feel that in your heart, it's just one of those things that you shouldn't say. Three of the not to say unsolicited advice. I'm a holistic grief educator and grief coach and grief coaching mentor, and I never give advice to strangers. When I'm working with clients, they have come to me for guidance, but I don't give guidance or I don't do much in early sessions. I really have to suss out like this whole person, what's going on, how are they, who are they, and I always ask permission. Do you want some homework? Do you want something, I'm feeling strongly about something that I would like you to work on, but if you're not there, that's fine. You don't have to even hear it. It's very permission based. So, would exercise help them? Yeah, probably. Or that, I'm big on self care. But advice just, it's back to toxic positivity. They also, grieving is healing. The grief is part of the healing because grief is a form of their love that's trying to find a way to work itself like it's reincarnating. them into a new version of themselves. It's this dark night of the soul. It's this valley of the shadows, and it is part of their it's part of their experience of their loss and their life and their love. So again, this is this fix it mentality of, oh, if you just did this, as if you could just minimize their grief experience and, oh, if you just did one, two, three, you'd be better. There are a ton of things that are very supportive for grievers and that are very helpful. I usually work to ask people if I can guide them. I mean, obviously, if they're seeing me, I'm guiding them. But if they don't want to see me, I usually guide them to support groups or something. But you really, again, asking permission is quite powerful. Is quite powerful. And really, the skill of being able to read the room, reading the room, that's the hard part. Because if you're so uncomfortable with their pain, you are in projection and you are not reading them at all. You are not seeing them authentically because you're more in discomfort. So sometimes it's just better to say nothing and just hold that space of loving kindness. And I know, I've seen I saw a couple of younger girls on Instagram that do a really nice grief channel that I follow. And they did a video of, I think they were doing like a song and dance or something of all the things that they hate in grief. And one of them was, I don't want to hear you say you're sorry. Well, you know, what's left, like it's if it's a total stranger. I like old school etiquette and rules, as long as there's then been very like therapeutic awareness and contemporary authentic awareness, and any new information, let's bring it on and add it in. But I think I'm so sorry for your loss is a valid and compassionate and authentic thing to say. You're not saying what they're dealing with. That didn't land well with me when they said that, because I thought, well, I can't read your mind. So apparently you need like I can't thread the needle of exactly what every single person needs to hear. I may ask, what 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 do you need to hear from me? I want to say I'm so sorry for your loss, but how does that feel for you? I think that's okay. But just shutting the doors on other people's compassion because it isn't phrased quite the way you want to hear it, we got to leave. It's hard enough for grievers to receive support from people without taking the aperture down to the eye of a needle. So, but grievers aren't thinking, they're just hurting. So no unsolicited advice. Of course you want them to be feeling better, doing better, whatever, but suggestions aren't going to help. And they might feel forced, and they might feel put into that kind of timeline of, oh, I should be doing this, and then they're judging, and then they're feeling guilty, and then it's just a bit of a domino effect that ends up creating more pain than help. So, how deep are we in here? So, vague or non-specific or passive, passive offers of support. Let me know if you need anything. So I stopped saying that years ago. I read something or studied something, or maybe it came to me from my own experience. I can't remember. But this is so passive. It puts the onus on the person in pain to now what? Pick up the phone, reach out to you, figure out what they even need, which they're probably not capable of doing in the first place, and then ask for help. No, do it. Do it. That is, that saying, it's rather it's not only passive, it's almost apathetic and disingenuous. Like, oh, well, let me know if you need anything. "Mm, okay." It's just so, ugh, I don't know. It doesn't land well with me. At the end of this, I'm going to give you the positives. So that if you're going to be offering help, um, make sure it's not in that passive, making them do all the work style. So you don't want to put any more burden on them, as now they're needing to reach out to people. So another thing not to say is offering religious sentiments. Now, if you all live in the same ashram or you're heavily in the same religion, church, temple, um, uh, um, I'm just sanctuary, you're like, you are definitely of the same faith, and it's a very big part of who you are and how you are attached to that person. That might be the caveat for that might be the exception. But even if you know that they're religious, it's usually just best to steer clear of religious statements, because it's such faith is such a personal thing. And it can really end up coming out as the religious version of toxic positivity, which is spiritual whitewashing. Oh, they're with God now, or oh, Jesus took them, or at least they're in heaven, they're in a better place. All of that stuff. It's just better to steer clear of it. There's a triteness to it, if unless you are, of that. Even if you are, I think it's a lesser holding space. This idea that we're going to find the right words to make it all better is the problem. That words are weak tools. And I'm a professional writer and speaker and hypnotherapist. Like the heart and your compassion and your care and your holding space are a billion times more powerful than anything you can say. Anything that'll come out of your mouth pales in comparison to the love and the action. So we'll get to some actions. So another thing that's very common, that really happens a lot, and this, I'm guessing this is a very Western thing that people, grievers, hear, and I've seen this a lot, is that they hear how strong they are. Maybe they're having kind of a better day and they're not completely shattered and they're functioning a little bit. They're at the grocery store, maybe they were able to make it back to work, and people are constantly throwing this, oh my God, you're so strong. I'm in awe of how strong you are. And it's really, they might be faking it really well that day, or they might just be having a moment where they simply have to get these things done to survive. Nobody's dropping off groceries, they had to go to the store, or they have a family, or they have children, or they don't have bereavement leave from work, or they're self-employed and the world has to, they have to do what they have to do. But this, you're doing so well, or I didn't think you I didn't I it kind of can meld into a toxic positivity again. This, oh, your person wouldn't have wanted you to feel sad, so that's so great that you're doing so well. It's really, human beings are individual universes of emotions, thoughts, spiritual or higher self connections, physical alignment, all of it, experience, history, future, present. This idea that you're assessing their whole grief experience from one little moment of seeing them, maybe in a slightly positive, they might be being a little, feeling a little bit better in that moment, is that does not color their grief experience at all, and it doesn't represent it. You might be seeing that teeny tiny little snowflake at the tip of the iceberg that is what they're experiencing. So another very important thing not to say is, and this should be obvious, is judgmental statements. Judging anyone's grief experience is taboo. If you hear yourself saying the words should, that's even in your head before it comes out of your mouth. Stop right there. That's one of the things that the stage model of grieving ends up setting up for people, that like, oh, what stage are you in? It's not a race, it's not a linear experience. There's no time attached to grief. So and that putting expectation on grievers, that's expectation coming out of your mouth. Oh, it's been a year, really? Gosh, it's been 6 months. Wow, really? Wasn't that 2 years ago? Like, it's judgment. It's judgment. And that judgment of their experience and the amount of time that's passed is one of the most common judgments that grievers hear. Or, I thought you'd be more upset. Like, oh, what, I'm not upset enough? Or, so it doesn't, there's no good. There's no either they're still feeling it, or they're not feeling it enough. It's not even your business. It's no one's business. So these statements that are judging their experience are incredibly toxic and very damaging. And grievers can be quite fragile, and they can really be already, trust me, they're in enough judgment of their own experience on their own. They don't need it from the outside. So now let's focus on some of the things to say, the right things to say to grievers. So I like saying, um, let's say it was their sister Paula. You might say, Paula was such a special person. I miss her too. I miss her too. If you're feeling up to it, I would love to share some memories of her with you. Let me know if you ever want to do that. Like, it's really, you're holding this space, you're seeing them, and you're focused on the loved one in a positive way. You can also say to someone, I'm here for you. You can talk about your dad as much as you want to with me. I'm here. I'm ready. How's now? Or not? uh, you never know what space a griever might be in. So the intention of this is, coming from a place of patience and understanding and compassion, and it's open-minded, yet it has boundaries. You're not focusing on their grief experience, you're focusing on the love and the loved one. So and it's very judgment free. So, validating their experience and affirming any more healthy coping mechanisms that that they're doing, if they've shared that with you, might be like, gosh, I'm so glad that you're seeing a grief coach. That's really, that sounds like really good self-care. I'm glad you're seeing a counselor. That you deserve support, you deserve help. Everybody needs help. Grief can be really hard. I'm glad you're doing that. So it's more that you're validating their experience without judgment. Um, One of the most important things you can do, and one of the most powerful, is saying their loved one's name. People never say the loved one's name because, and wait for it, people are afraid that if they say the loved one's name, or if they even bring up the loss, like, people may not say anything at all, like, I don't want to bring up their loss because it looks like they're having a good day and I don't want to upset them. Yeah, they're not forgetting for a millisecond about their loss, their grief, and their loved one. There is no such thing as they're having a good day and you bringing up their loved one is going to ruin their good day. Now, if I think, again, reading the room really matters. If they're, about to go into something extremely, challenging or important. I know you work together at the hospital and they're a brain surgeon and they're very focused on, they're about to go in for an operation, may not be the best time to go, oh my gosh, you just want to say, hey, I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, you really also want to be reading, your timing when you do say things. Um, that's why a little bit of a pause and just holding space and saying, I've been thinking so much about you. Um, how are you? Uh, I'm thinking so much about Paula as well. I miss her. She was such a great person. Um, I have another couple of examples, so I'm not going to insert them yet because I haven't told you what they are. But saying their loved one's name, it's a gift. It's such a gift. So you're focusing on honoring their loved one's life and their qualities, not the death, the life. Not in any kind of, well, let's get past the death and get over it, just in this space of, God, John was just, he was such a great dad. Such a great dad. We all loved him so much. And, Paula spread happiness wherever she went. Like, really, if you knew the person that passed, you can really be calling up specific things to show that you really saw that person. That, God, John was such a good artist. Like, his art always really moved me. Like I have a piece of his, and every day I look at it and I'm thinking about you and I'm thinking about him, and I want you to know you are just, you guys are in my heart. You're in my heart. So this is where, like with the religious part, you might want to be careful with the words prayers. Like right now, obviously, they're so, you're in my thoughts and prayers has become such a cliche that, action is more powerful than words. So if you're going to say something like that, then back that up with some doing. And doing can be loving and acting and caring and, showing that you are caring about that person and their family and their friends. So I also like, gosh, remember the time that John, hit that foul ball and it went, blah, 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 blah. Like a little story. Again, you want to read the room. If they're completely sobbing, you want to match the energy of the person as well. So that's more important than the words. If they're sobbing their brains out and you're like, remember that time you hit that foul ball? You're way out of whack here. Like you want to hold this space. And then really, if someone is in deep sadness and crying, just unless I've certified you and trained you in all of my techniques, that you really it might be safest just to hold that space and just use touch if you're allowed, holding their hand, and just be there with them. Just that silence and that space of them being able to cry and do that in front of you without any judgment. That's a gift. That's a gift. And even whatever little, like, I know, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. It doesn't have to get fancy. It's not a deposition, as I like to say. It isn't about, sentences. It's really, this is the time to be, talking like a 3-year old. God, I'm so sorry. I see you're just, I see everything. I'm so sorry. I'm here for you. Just that empathy and that compassion and holding that space. And they may, if they're crying, they may say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "Hey, no, 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 no. You can always cry with me. Like that's a safe. I'm a safe person. This is a safe space. I'm here for you." That's literally being there for someone, physically showing up and being there for them. And anytime you want to cry, I'm here for you. But I'm going to get to that next bit, so it's not a passive offer. I'd love to hear any stories you have about Susan. Anytime you're feeling up to it, I'll follow up with you. So validate and affirming their experience without your own filter. And that's, that, like they don't need to do anything for you in their grief. Like, hey, you cry, you scream, laugh, whatever you're experiencing. I'm okay to hold space for you. I'm here. Bring it on. We can, whatever emotions you're feeling, I'm here for you. I'm your friend. I care about you. And I want to help you. You're welcome to ask for anything. You can move at your own pace with me. I don't have any expectations. So kind of like this laying it bare of all these things I'm saying. And you can also, even if you're unsure, say, look, I'm going to do my best here. I might say something that lands wrong. And if it does, please tell me. If it doesn't feel right, I'm learning how to hold space for grievers because it's important to me. And if I don't always get it right, I'm a human being too, but I really care about you. I love you. I care about you. You're my friend, whatever it is. I want to help you. So the other part about the helping part, so that it's an active offer of helping and offering your help. So, oh my God, there's just there I the list of things that people need after loss and when they're grieving is as long as your arm. There's organizational tasks. There's just checking on them. There's, maybe saying, would you like to just go sit outside under a tree? I can hold space with you. I can spend time with you. There's just the doing. Do the front porch groceries. Just drop them off. Don't call them. Don't ask. What do they need? Like you can do that. First one can just be you went to the store. If you know them well enough, you might have an idea of what their diet is, how they eat. Obviously, they have food allergies. You kind of want to know about that. You can have food delivered. My God, that's so easy to do. But this making them make decisions. Well, I'm going to the grocery store. What do you want? Like they're like, they're going to say nothing. I'm fine. No, that isn't the point. The point is not which groceries they wanted. The point was showing your support by dropping a couple of bags of groceries, ringing the doorbell, texting them and saying, I just left you something on your front porch. I'm thinking about you. I'm going to go again in a couple days. If there's anything in particular that you need or that you're out of, please let me know because I'll be back. That's doing without putting the onus on them to make a list. I mean, if they do, if they have a newborn or there's going to be very specific needs with different people, but just the doing, even that first time, kind of trains them and sets the tone that it's really someone showing up for them with them not having to do the work to get support. They didn't have to call you. As she said, if I needed anything to ask. Now they got to like figure out the groceries, pick up the phone, feel, this might be one of your favorite, control freak friends that's used to doing everything for everybody else. They may not be comfortable asking for help on a good day, let alone if they are in acute grief or in traumatic loss. So just the doing is very powerful. So there may come a time when I know I've helped someone clean out the apartment of their parents after the parents passed away, and it's showing up, doing the work. You bring the boxes, you bring the tape gun, you bring the packing stuff and the newspaper, and you just get to it. You just get to it. And you can be playing music, you could talk, you can not talk. It's really, it's funny because I have some people in my life that I describe them like they're so supportive that, sorry, that if somebody needed a barn built, they'd be the first person there with a hammer and nails. Like that's being supportive to someone in grief. So by doing this and say, hey, I'm going to my bank. I was just thinking if you have anything that you need done at the bank or your bank, I can swing by and I can take care of anything for you. Or, obviously there's digital banking now, but you never know. Especially if it's an elderly person, they might not do digital banking. Or, I'm just not doing anything today and was thinking about you. Would you like me to come pick you up and help you run some errands? There could be just any of these things. You could be just showing up. You could be bringing them food. You could be running errands. You could be communicating. Man, I'll tell you, especially right after loss, somebody that steps up as a communications czar, as I call it, is, man, they are an angel in disguise because there is so much communication that has to happen immediately following a loss. The story has to be told of the passing. People have to be contacted, arrangements are made, funeral, life memorial, celebrations. It is overwhelming. So one of my favorite things is if somebody's like, I don't have like, maybe they're in a different state, but they really want to do something, they can be assigned, like being in charge of Facebook of maybe the person who's passed, making it, I think it's called a memorial page. It might have another name, but when someone passes and they had a Facebook page, you can switch the page to a different version. It's a memorial page, so that then that's really often the best way to communicate their passing, any arrangements, if there's charity donations or if there's a GoFundMe for the family, or what celebrations or life memorials or funeral arrangements or any of it. Because you can also then make a Facebook event. It really becomes, it's one of the things that Facebook is really epic for. And you can put someone in charge of it. Someone that keeps saying, I want to do something, but I'm 3,000 miles away, that they could be in charge of funneling all communication. So you don't have a griever who maybe had a very traumatic loss having to tell this story over and over and over and over, or constantly telling new people. That really becomes bombarding. becomes bombarding because they may not be in any shape to be handling other people's shock, other people's grief, other people's pain, and all of these things that people are saying that might be all the wrong things to say, even from good intentions. So that's a great way to jump in with action, is to either be the communication czar, or, or be that person that says, okay, this needs to be done. Let's give it to this person, and let's give it to this person. Let's have this person do that. And then run that for them. Don't make them, they can't make good decisions right after loss. They may be in shock. They may be, you know, there's just too much going on already, emotionally and mentally and spiritually and physically. Some people don't want to get out of bed for a couple of months. um, there's just a lot. So this, to say I'm always here for you is, I'm texting you at 6 o'clock tonight because I'm going to see what you want for dinner. And that's what I'm going to do, and do it every day. Just do it. Show up. They may not respond. Maybe you drop something off on the steps, maybe you don't, but they know that you care. And instead of saying, if you need me, call me, it's, I'm here. You're showing with your actions that you're backing up your words of truly supporting the person in grief. So you can also say, I'll come over and cook dinner. You don't even have to come out of the bedroom if you don't want to. I'm going to cook, a week's worth of meals. You can do it at your house. You can do it at their house. Again, you're going to read the room. Everybody's going to be different. But this doing is so powerful. So, filing stuff, opening the mail, just all that various and sundry stuff that really starts to pile up because it's just too daunting. Hands on help, they're not going to ask you to do this. So showing up and doing it, compassion is love in action, and doing these things, it's the most loving thing you can do. And whatever words you might come up with pale in comparison to showing up, holding space that's healthy without your own filters and your own fear and your own need to fix, without your own experience polluting it, and with action, and holding space for them and their loved one, and honoring their loved one. These are the things that matter. These kind, thoughtful, compassionate, meaningful words and actions. They're everything. They don't just go a long way. They are everything. So, like I said, holding healthy space for grievers, is actually just a small part of what I teach in my holistic grief coaching fundamentals class. That is a certification course. It's a 4 month long course, and there's more information about it on my website. And you can always schedule a free consultation call with me to ask me any questions, to see if you're a good fit, and to find out when my next courses start up. So thanks so much for spending time with me. I'm so grateful that you want to make the world a better place by doing what I think is one of the most powerful, important, and needed things, and that is supporting grievers with love. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.